recording. We'll get started. Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome, my friends, to another exciting edition of Meet the Author, but not at the Pyramid Club, but with the Pyramid Club. We are on Zoom, obviously, today. Love our lunchtime sessions. We're going to have a great conversation with our author today. I want to give you some information about some upcoming sessions. So first of all, any of you who are joining for the first time, Meet the Author has been around a long time. So 7+ years. So I think it will be 8 as of September, which is crazy, but there you go. We did most of these in person at the beautiful Pyramid Club in Center City, Philadelphia. And then a crazy thing happened when we were not able to do it there. I'm sure you know what that was. So we started to do some remote sessions, and we've continued to do that. Now we have some in person, some remote. We are blessed to be on the Philadelphia Business Journal's list as best networking in Philadelphia. We are number 5 on that list, and there is a reason for that. Whether you come to a program remotely or whether you go to the Pyramid Club, there are some cool people who attend these sessions. So in the chat room, speaking of meeting other people, in the chat room, we have my colleague Darby, who is the chat room ambassador. So she will be watching your comments and capturing some key points for us, but definitely make use of the chat room if there's things you want to point out or questions you have. And Darby, thank you for managing that for us.
Absolutely.
All right, so what's coming up? Let's see, August 19th, we have another lunchtime session with Mr. Rick Brandon, and his book is called Straight Talk, Influence Skills for Collaboration and Commitment. Rick is a cool guy. I got to know Rick. He wrote a book about organizational savvy. And I have actually, not only have I used that book, but I have gotten certified in the content to help organizations and people within them understand organizational politics and learn that it is not a bad thing. It is something to understand and work with. So we will have an awesome conversation August 19th at noon. We just scheduled an in-person event at the Pyramid Club October 25th. It will be an author panel. We're still determining the theme of that. But if you are so inclined to come into Center City, enjoy some delicious food, have some wine or other beverage of choice, October 25th in the evening, it will be 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So mark your calendar. All right, we're ready to roll today. I am delighted to have my friend that I met a long time ago. I had to actually go through I'm like, when did we meet? It was about 2010. And at that time, he was working for the IRS. So I made this mental note that, boy, if I ever have questions about taxes or the IRS in general, I have at least somebody who has been on the inside. So that was Gil. Currently, he's a business teacher at Burlington County Institute of Technology. He's also the founder of Orion Consulting Services and Orion Education Services. The reason he's with us today is because he wrote a book, Culturally Relevant Financial Literacy, a Guide for Educators. Gil, welcome to Meet the Author.
Thank you, Teresa. It's been a very long time since we last saw each other virtually or in person. So great to see you, even if it is virtually. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And I'm happy to get the word out about your work because I think it's important. And I think there's not a lot out there that addresses this topic. So tell me, that it's a lot of work to write a book, because I can tell you I'm in the process. It's a lot of work. Why did you write this book? Why did you do it?
Sure. So it was really a labor of love for this. It took me, as you knew me for a long time. It's been a long journey from starting at the IRS, becoming an educator of all things. That's a long journey. But the main thing was I did not want the next generation of the kids that I'm teaching to make the same mistakes that I did. And the more I talk to people about financial literacy, I realized it wasn't just me. There were a whole lot of us that really had no concept in school regarding financial literacy. But as far as the actual book itself goes, I'm currently studying for my doctorate in education and
Wow,
curriculum.
great.
Uh, yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's no joke at all.
No,
Not even.
I know. While I have not done that myself, I have friends that have recently completed that journey, and it is no joke.
Yeah, they disappear for a while. You don't hear from them.
That's right.
So
That's right. And
exactly.
I'm glad to have them back in my life. That is absolutely true.
Right, right. But when I started doing my research, of course, it was I wanted to know more about what they were doing as far as teaching financial literacy, and I found that, and I was also at the same time we were going through diversity and culturally relevant teaching strategies in my school in my district, which a lot of districts are doing now. And so I got curious as to whether or not these two things intersected as I thought they should. It was an idea, it's a hypothesis. These things should intersect. And I found that they did, but there was very, very little original research on that.
Yeah.
But the research that I did find basically held true to what I had already known just from my own teaching practice. And that was that the same way not all children learn the same, you can't teach financial literacy the same way to all children.
Right.
It's just not going to, for some, they're like, oh, yeah, I've seen that done before. It makes sense. For others, not so much. And the problem that I saw uh, was that it was like a one size fits all sort of thing. It was like, okay, it's mandated, we have to teach it. And what I found was that usually there was like, I'm lucky in that I am a marketing and business teacher, so that naturally falls to me. But for a
Hmm.
lot of schools, or even my own, sometimes it's the math teacher who's teaching it. Sometimes it's the gym teacher, the health education teacher who's teaching financial literacy. Just kind of whoever happens to be handy. And it's they're like, okay, well, here's what you're teaching, and they teach it. And for a lot of kids, it winds up just being another academic exercise, which it should not
Yeah.
be.
Okay.
I think most of us who are on this call realize how important knowing how money works, how to save, what
Yeah.
different things are. But again, like I say in my book, if you're trying to introduce, and you said this in the introduction too, which I appreciate in the marketing blurbs, if you are trying to teach the concept or importance of banking to a child who happens to live in an area where there aren't really many banks at all, or just has not seen that in in practice,
Right.
it's not going to
Right.
mean anything to them. They're like, okay, that's nice, and they're going to go about their lives, But you have to be able to make that mean something to them, show them why it's important, have those conversations about, well, here's why some people don't go to banks, and
Right.
here's why you should, and here's maybe why you want to maybe start something um, where you do open a bank or some sort of savings or something. So yeah, so that's how that got started. Basically, it was
Yeah.
just labor of love, labor of love.
It's funny, Gil, because I probably would not have even thought about this had you not written this book. And if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know you, because I can remember now, my parents were by no means affluent. My dad worked in a factory, was a
Mm-hmm.
union member, worked in a factory for a long time. Mom worked retail, J.C. Penney's,
Mm-hmm.
and they were scrappy. They did other little outside things to make ends meet. But they did have a bank account,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
remember going to the bank with them, even as a tiny kid, and standing in line, bored, of course, to tears as they were waiting to get up to complete their transaction. But I had a sense of what it was. And then when I was
Mm-hmm.
in my, I would say, teens, I had this passbook savings account. I don't even think they still do
No,
passport.
they don't. No, don't do that. No. I remember this Columbia Bank. It was a brown walnut looking thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very official looking, and they would
Hmm. Hmm.
put little what was a computer printout in there of what
Yep.
your balance is. But I would imagine for many kids, their parents not only probably don't spend a lot of time banking if they do,
Hmm.
or they're it's just so not on their radar.
Right. Right. I mean, it's because I had the same type of background where I was from. Very very much blue collar. And it was the same thing with me and my classmates. Now, our school, what they did do was they had the bank come in and they sent something home saying, "Hey, you can open up a passport savings account." So some of us did that. And same thing with my parents. Like my mom worked in a factory, my dad worked blue collar jobs, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And the thing is, though, is that even though they're like, okay, here's how you fill out a check, that sort of thing. One, it's up to the parents. Two, for people who aren't affluent, money is not a conversation that is usually had in households that aren't affluent. Because
Right.
when there's plenty of it, you have no problem talking about money, right?
Right. It's
So,
almost
but
fun. It's almost like a game, right? When you have a whole lot of money.
right, 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 exactly. But when you're trying to make ends meet, you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't want to talk about that, especially with your kids. You really don't
Sure.
have, you may tell them something like I was told, like, hey, make sure you keep your credit good. Well, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Make sure you pay your bills on time. Okay, well, what does that mean? Why?
Yeah.
And so that's the other
Yeah.
reason too, is that a lot of the kids don't know that. They don't know. They've heard it before, but they don't understand the reasoning why behind it. So,
So, Gil, how are you? I don't want to say marketing, but in a way it is marketing.
mhm.
How are you connecting with those educators that have the audience that most need this? What are you doing to connect with them?
Very organically. It's
Okay.
a slow but sure process. So things like this, which I'm grateful for. So thank you. Um, Word of mouth. Really, right now, I've done some marketing that will be stepped up this year as well. I really wanted to test the water, so to say, first. But I've gotten an overwhelmingly positive response from everyone on all sides, whether it be educators, whether it be parents, even the kids themselves. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Wow, this is so necessary. This is so needed." Uh, but actually, especially for not just for educators, but for school districts as well. So for
Mm-hmm.
those in leadership positions in schools, just because I know for New Jersey, financial education is mandated. I know it's recently mandated in Florida for financial
Okay.
literacy, and Michigan also recently mandated financial literacy. However, and the same thing in New Jersey, so I took an informal poll of my class before I
Mm-hmm.
even started teaching. I was like, all right, how many of you have had, financial literacy class? And, they all raised their hand because they had to. They had it in eighth grade. All right, well, what do you remember? A lot of hands went down.
Hmm.
And a couple said, I don't know, something about checking accounts. But they really couldn't tell me what it was they learned or related
Right.
to why it was important. And for me, I was like, oh, that's a problem. All right, because what they're seeing it as an academic exercise. This is something
Yep.
to
It's a
be done and
checkbox.
just right and get it over with. And I think
Yeah.
unfortunately, for a lot of school systems, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, the state of New Jersey told us, or the state of whoever told us we need to do this. We're going to shoehorn it in there somehow. And so my hope with this book is just to open the eyes of those who are either teaching it, want to teach it, whether it be in the school or homeschooling as well. Uh, but also for those in leadership to say, hey, listen, if we're going to do this, let's do it in a way where we get the most bang for our buck, where we get a really high ROI off of this, return on
Right.
investment, teaching these kids. And it doesn't take a whole lot. I give, a couple brief examples in the book of what to do. They're really, really small little shifts that make a huge impact with kids. So I'll give you one example.
Okay.
There are there are some cultures where everyone sees wealth differently. There are some cultures where accumulating wealth for the sake of wealth does nothing for them. So if you approach financial literacy as in a way where, hey, you can get really rich. You can make sure you have a lot of money for your retirement. Well, first of all, they're teenagers. They're not thinking about retirement. They're not thinking about 2 weeks from now.
Right.
I
Right.
imagine. I know at 17, I'm like, I'm trying to decide what I want to do Friday and Saturday night. I'm not thinking about
Right. Those are the big
retirement.
life
What?
decisions.
Right. What are you talking about?
Right.
Um, and like the one example that I read in my research, and I think it was a very good example. They were saying for certain Native American cultures, for example, the idea of gaining wealth for wealth's sake is kind of repugnant, actually.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not something, wealth, you have wealth in order for you to be able to give more to the community.
Yeah.
And there are many non-Western cultures like that. So instead of telling a child, or all of them actually, so many more kids now with Gen Z and whatnot, they really relate more to what they can do to help society.
Yeah.
Okay, well, don't generate. Here's why this is important. Don't generate wealth just for yourself, but think about how it could help your family, family you may have in another country. Think about what you can do to further whatever social enrichment goals that you may have. Now you're connecting with them on something that they can actually think about and feel and be passionate about.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can. Okay, well that's different. It's one thing if I make money for myself. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. The future's way off. But I really would maybe like to be able to build a school in,
Yeah.
in the country where my parents come from or where my grandparents are. Now now
Right.
you're connecting with them. All right, that's the first thing I start with is what is your definition of wealth? And there
That's
are more.
awesome.
Yeah, there's another guy too. I heard in a podcast where he was very 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 well off, but he's like he likes having that level of wealth because it means he can hop on a plane at any time and be there for a friend who needs him. And
Nice.
that was his whole entire purpose. So if you miss that as an educator, if you miss that opportunity, then
Yeah.
you have possibly lost that kid. So yeah, so it's small shifts like that, and that's what I mean by being culturally
Yeah.
relevant. You know, um, just making sure you're at the the students' level. You meet them where they are. You meet them where they
Yep.
are.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Gil. You're meeting them where they are. And what I like about this is it's not just about the nuts and bolts of finance. It is getting them to think bigger. It's creating a vision. What does good look like for you?
Right.
How do you define success? Like I will tell people, and those that are tight with me know, I've said, I am rich. And you might think, well, isn't she bragging? Look at her. It has nothing to do with money. Though I'd
Mhm.
like to think I'm okay with money. But when I say I am rich, I am at a place in my life where I have an abundance of wonderful people in my life that no matter what it is that I need, I know somebody. I
Yeah.
am rich with people. But I will say financially, I'm at a place where I have choices, which there are people who don't.
Exactly.
And that to
Exactly.
me is being rich when you have choices. You have
Hmm.
choices. I forget where I read it, might have been a Princeton study that said in order to not be rich, but to be at a point where money is not going to eat your soul, that you're worried about it. It was like $70,000 is what
Hmm.
you And who knows, now with inflation, it could be 80. I don't know.
I was
But
going to say, yeah, I don't think it's 70 anymore.
it might
That was
be
yesterday's price. That was yesterday's price. Yeah.
right. Oh my gosh. But getting
Hmm.
folks at, at that age to see like what is out there and what
Right.
does good look like for them and how do you define success and
Hmm.
sharing information like in order to have a house, have a car, pay the insurance on it, whatever.
Hmm.
This is about what it costs in this. No one ever explained that to me, Gil. No one
Right. Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Same
ever.
here. Same here.
We
Yeah. Same.
learned.
Same. Oh, we learn. Oh, yeah. Experience is a horrible. Well, I mean, it's a brutal but efficient teacher.
Yeah, yeah. But I remember, I mean, I've been in a situation where I was deciding what bill to pay
Hmm.
and having to call and explain, like, I'm really sorry, I can't do this month, but I'll do next month.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Same here. Same here. And that's something I tell my students too. And that I want everyone to know really, but especially for my students, like I'm not coming to you and telling you this from some ivory tower.
Right.
I can tell you this because I have made every single mistake that I'm going to tell you about.
Yeah.
So everything that you're learning the right way to do, I had done it the wrong way.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
like I talked about in the very beginning about how I became the mayor of Brookville. So, you know, how I ran for office for that and won hands down in a landslide to become the mayor of Brookville. So, yeah, if you get the book, go ahead and read that part. But yeah, we weren't taught that at all, and that's something else I found that really resonates with the kids is that with the newer generations, they do want those choices because they've seen how miserable people can be when they're working simply to live.
Yeah.
They want to be able to do something else and they find that exciting. Like, okay, well, tell me more about that. How can I actually, when I graduate, have more of a choice about
Yes.
what I want to do? It becomes about freedom basically,
Yep.
and having those choices and making the right choices now so you have all those different things to pick from, later on in life. So.
Yeah. Things like it's funny. I had a conversation with a colleague this week, and I live in a half a twin in North Wales that I bought
Mhm.
over 20 years ago. The cost
Oh.
of the house was $110,000 at the time,
Mhm.
110,000, which even then really wasn't a ton of money. It wasn't.
Mhm.
So I pretty quickly paid it off. So I've
Okay.
knock on wood, I own my home and
Nice.
feel good about that. Now people will say, well, T, why didn't you move to a bigger house? Like you could have afforded a bigger house. It goes back to choices. The
Right.
beautiful thing about having a fully paid off half a twin is um, I could probably, I don't know, work at the grocery store and stock produce and have
Right.
an income that would sustain me.
Hmm.
Now I can't have big parties at my house, but I can rent a place that's beautiful and hire a
Exactly.
band. So
I was going to say, and have someone else clean it up. So.
yeah, well, but for me, having
Mhm.
an abundance of choices is wealth. I think, how do you get these children who are in a situation, and I won't count
Mhm.
myself in that because we were always lower middle class. We weren't poor,
Mhm.
we just didn't have a lot of money. But those that you were talking about with, they're actually getting their lunch at school. They're getting,
Mhm. Mhm.
how do you get them to see they are included in this? This is not abstract. This is a
Right. Right.
possibility for them to
Hmm.
have an awesome life. How do we get
Yeah.
them to see that?
Something I found that I started including in my curriculum, and this is something I'm going to probably get more into with the next iteration of the book or the next book, or start really preaching more about, is how important agency and mindset is.
Yes.
So something yes, so something that I did come across in my initial research with this was that you have to, especially for those children who come from, not great, as far as like resources go, money
Sure.
resources, or maybe from traditionally underrepresented communities, is that they have to be able to see that it's something that they can do.
Yes.
So, great example of this. Do you remember Kirkland Berry?
I don't. Oh my God. Yes. I know.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So,
Kirk,
yes. So,
who has written some books and is out there helping youth and is wonderful. Yes.
right. I'm actually next week teaching a class about stocks to, and his he has a boys camp. So I'm actually teaching a class about stocks that we're having a little
Awesome.
workshop. Yeah, and so you have to be able to, because most people, when you think about the stock market, you think you have to have all this money and everything else. And it's like, no, just look at it as, you can start from wherever you're at. You don't have to have this big pile of money in order to, especially if you're starting as a teenager.
Sure.
It's just maybe, listen, I tell my kids, I don't care if it's $5 a month, $10 a month. It's not about the amount, it's about getting the discipline of doing
Yes. Yes.
it. So even if you're saving I don't care if it's $1 a month, if you do that for 12 months, well, guess what? End of the year, you have $12 rather than nothing, right? So it's more about just the discipline of doing it, but letting them know that this is something that they can do. You have to kind of back up a little bit and start doing some mindset training.
Yeah.
So, well, something I did for my kids was I made up these folders, and on the front of the folder, it said, I am worthy of a wealthy life. So they have to know that they are worthy of,
Yes.
of that wealth and abundance. Again, that definition of wealth being whatever it is they want it to be, but that they're worthy of. So you have to start with that mindset first. Once they realize that, oh, this is something that is for me. This is something that I can do. Now you can start teaching all those other things because it's something they're actually going to care about. If you're, teaching, if you're doing a lesson and it's about, I don't know, how Johnny, like, when, has two shore houses.
Right.
So actually, really, really, really funny aside. I had a child recently who, I do some tutoring as well, and this is a good example. And I just asked him, "Hey, what did you do this weekend?" I said, "Oh, well, you went down to the shore, that sort of thing." And da da da. And he's like, "Well, what town is your beach house in?" And I was like, "I don't have a beach house." He was like,
Wow. Doesn't everybody have
like,
a beach house?
yeah. And he was like, "Oh, okay." Now, keep in mind, I'm not ragging on this kid at all, but that's
No.
simply a
But that's the
part of his
mindset.
everyday.
His circle, there's
Right,
you have your home and then you have this other home. And
right,
wow. Yeah.
right. That simply makes sense for him. That's what
Sure.
he's going. He's a little kid. He's going to like fifth grade, so that makes perfect sense for him. That's what he
Wow.
sees. All right. So for his peers, his family, well, yeah, of course we go down to the shore every summer and we stay in our shore house. Well, why wouldn't you ask that question? It's like, well, I like pizza. What's your favorite pizza?
Sure.
Same thing,
Yeah.
right? So if you're a kid who's the complete opposite of that, and you and you look out your front door and you just see concrete and bleakness and everybody struggling. That's what's
That's
normal
your
to you,
world. And
right?
you
That
think
is. Mhm.
that is how it is for everyone.
Right. And anything else is like, oh, that'd be nice, but I don't see how I could ever do that. So you
That's,
really have to got to back up a little bit. You really have
yeah.
to start with mindset. And that's something that's very, very important to me, is establishing mindset in kids, and letting them know that, not only is being able to save or invest is not only something that they can do, but it's something that they should and and are worthy of doing.
Yeah.
A lot of kids feel like, well, why should I bother doing that? I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. And then
Okay.
you have to, yeah, you kind of have to get
It,
them out of that
it's
mindset.
it's so funny. The foundation is so deep before we even get to the talk about going to the bank and saving money and buying stuff. That
Right.
foundation of really self-esteem and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
possibilities and
Right.
like that all has to kind of precede.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about saving money or
Right.
filing our taxes or but that it really does all start with that. I get pumped up. You can tell I'm getting pumped up because I'm all about, well, because dude,
Yeah.
I am living the power of mindset. I am living the power
Mm-hmm.
of a
Mm-hmm.
shift in how I see myself and the world because my world was very small, not terrible, but just it was a very
Mm-hmm.
small, like, and when you say, are you worthy? Like, yes, you're worthy. I think there was a time where I felt no. And
Mm-hmm.
this is
Mm-hmm.
cultural. This is cultural. Growing up Catholic, we're very
Mm-hmm.
much taught. We say it again and again, Lord, I am not worthy. It is a big part of our nomenclature,
Right.
and how
Mm-hmm.
we,
Mm-hmm.
so when I get out in the world, I had to like have a conversation with myself. I think Jesus would want me to have stuff. I do. I I think he would be cool with me being an okay. I do. I
Yeah.
think I am worthy. But it was almost a mental shift in my head
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
start speaking up and um well, in corporations, if you don't speak up and if you don't have self-love and a sense of worthiness, dude, you've been out there.
Oh
It's hard.
yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
hard to get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
Dude,
and and that's the other important thing about mindset too, is that it's just not for that one class. That carries
no,
over into everything,
it
right?
does.
So and I would say along with along with students who maybe traditionally underrepresented, for upper, underrepresented, but for our girls as well,
Yeah.
because I mean you've been there in the corporate world. It's like if you're super assertive, then they think bad things about you
Yep.
when
They
you're
use
not
the B
doing
word. Yes, they do.
right. Exactly. Yes,
They
exactly,
do.
exactly. So yeah, it's all about that. So they may not think that, well, can I really play the money game? And they certainly can. Like I love it when the girls in my class, when we do a stock simulation, they are in there. They are,
Nice.
they get riled up, and they're like, and I encourage that because I want that to continue
Wow.
into their personal and professional lives as well. Don't be a shrinking violet. This is something
Mm,
where money does not, money itself does not care about gender, really.
no.
There's all these other outside forces, of course, but if you can learn how to have that self agency, then you can move on to do other things. So
Yeah, so it's interesting how your work it's almost part, I want to say motivational speaker, but it's that
mhm.
creating the drive, which is
Right.
missing, I think, from some of the school curriculum, where, like you've said,
Hmm.
it's almost like it's a requirement, it's a checkbox, we've done it.
Right.
Whereas
Hmm.
you're saying it's more than that. It's more than checking the box. It's touching hearts and minds, getting them to see
Yes.
possibilities, getting to think more about themselves and what the possibilities are for their life.
Exactly. Exactly.
Dude,
And that's
noble
why.
work.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And that's why it's culturally relevant. It has nothing to do with race per se, or ethnicity, but just you know where do you come from
Yes.
mentally? It could be kids who are in rural Iowa, right? If you grew up on a
Right.
farm and there are no banks, or you're think about people whose parents were part of the Great Depression, right? They learned how to be very distrustful of banks,
Yep.
right? They
Yep.
would Mattress Financial, put it under a mattress, put it in a coffee can, bury it, and not put it in the bank. But it's about how to get out of that. And I mean, it's, at that time it was definitely well warranted. Um, or if your, parents or grandparents come from a country where the bank simply can't be trusted because the government's being overturned every, couple years.
Mm-hmm.
You can't put it in a bank because the state can take it over and all of a sudden no more. Like think of Panama, for example.
Yeah.
When that happened when all took over. It was all of a sudden it was nationalized and all that money went poof. So of course you're not going to put it in a bank. Why would you do that? So that's why you have to kind of get them out of that mindset.
Right.
But yeah, really, no matter who you are, just a matter of finding out what's important to you and finding out how to make it make sense for that child.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've said like this is the first step in something bigger for you. Like you have a vision for this, and this is just the like the first piece of it. What do you foresee is going to come beyond this for you and for this topic?
I would say the next step is definitely working on mindset. And the great thing about mindset is that can be expanded to everyone,
Yes.
right? But I think it's especially important for our school age kids. I did a little bit of that this past year, and actually I had another student who's very good, with mindset. She's incredible with it actually, and it was peer taught. And Teresa, let me tell you, the room was electric. That's the only way I could, the only way I can describe it. Having one teenager talk to other teenagers about mindset, about being positive, about setting goals for yourself, um, about assertion, about being assertive. And the stories these kids shared with, I was just in the back, just kind of taking it in, but it was absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible. So I want to do more of that, because I'm an
Wow.
old guy, so they see me as a teacher, like okay, yeah, fine. But when they're hearing about it from a peer, that's a whole other thing. I mean, there were tears and everything. It was incredible. It was nuts.
I
And,
I am so inspired by these young people.
oh yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's nuts. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. It's and there. Let's see, one podcast I was on. Like my closing statement for that one was, you can learn a lot from these kids if you simply listen. You know, they're these are things they think about. They're very active. If you listen, they will open up and tell you exactly what it is they're thinking. There's a guy called Wall Street Trapper. He's on Instagram. All right, and his thing was, he was someone who got in a lot of trouble as a youth, wound up in prison. And he learned about the stock market while he was in prison.
Well, he had
You know,
some time on his hands, right?
a little bit, right? And but it changed his whole mindset about how not only money but how the world worked. Like his story is the guy, he was, the one guy, other convict was like, well, he was in for a white collar crime. He was like, the difference between me and you is that, I embezzled money. When I get out of here, I still have some money left and I have the skill set where I can make it back again. And, he wasn't being smart about it, but he's like, what you did, what do you have when you come out of here? So that really changed things for him. And he got into the stock market and started um, teaching other people who were in the same situation that he was in or looked like they were going there. And he meets people at their level, right? And it's very, very powerful, very, very powerful. And I played one of his interviews for my kids, and my one student said, Mr. C, you know, the way you explain things is good, but the way he explained things, it got me here.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, okay. All right, I think that's another important point for educators too, is that you can't be greedy about it. Was I upset that that a kid, as long as they get the information, I don't care who they get it from.
Yeah, right, right.
As long as it makes sense to them, that's fine. So I wasn't upset that he thought someone did a better job. That's great. That's fine.
Yeah.
I have my lane. The other guy has
Yes.
his. Someone else has theirs. But it's about bringing those resources, about being open enough as an educator to bring those kind of resources in as well. So you can't be greedy about it. Like, okay, well, I'm the one who has all the knowledge,
Right.
and but no, once you have a conversation with the kids, you can find out a lot. So let's see. I guess ultimately, what I would love to do is have my own business academy, where kids are able to get this on a like a I don't want to say a full time basis, but something where even if their school doesn't have it, they
Yes.
can they can get the same information. And it's standardized. It's a process. And so when they go through the program, it's like, okay, they know that they're going to have a certain skill set. So that would be like later on down the line. I would say like maybe like a 10-year goal. Ultimately that's where it would go. Mainly for the kids, but for anybody really, because I think especially with the mindset, everyone can use that. So, but for right now, it's just about with the mindset for the kids, and um, just being able to show educators that there's a way to teach
Yeah.
this where it's not just another academic exercise. So,
Nice. And I I see such possibilities for you, and I don't see it taking 10 years. Of course, I'm forever the optimist. I see it taking less time, but I could see for you having an online program that helps to and has like video clips maybe of
mhm,
yourself and of other thought leaders, the gentleman who touched that kid's
mhm,
heart,
right,
and
right,
have something online that is always available, that and then supplement that with the in-person and the workshops. The fact that you're working with Kirkberry makes perfect
hmm,
sense. That's a perfect audience,
yes,
and a great opportunity. But I just think there is such potential for this, and I think my real passion isn't about the money piece of it. My passion
hmm,
around this for you is helping people see a really awesome life for themselves.
right, right,
Don't
yeah,
don't settle for, and getting them to see even what the potential is. I know I didn't know it. I remember picking a
hmm,
college major, and I just kind of looked around my little world, right? And I'm
hmm.
like, well, the people who work at Merck seem to have nice houses, and some of them have pools. That was a big factor for me. Some of them even have a pool. So I'm going to major in science. That's how I determined my undergrad.
Oh,
I'm going to
okay,
major in
okay.
science because I want to have that house with a pool. Like that was, but you know what, Gail? Neither of my parents graduated high school.
Right.
So
Okay,
they
okay.
were not
Mm,
capable. Like it's not like you can say, well, from our experience, let me tell you what you need. So,
right,
but I think
right.
people like yourself and like Kirk, if you can get out there and get people to see the possibilities beyond
Hmm,
what their world is, if they want it,
right,
if they want it.
right. Yeah, and
It-
that's the thing. It's like for some of for I was like, listen, not everybody wants to be the CEO of a company and and run the world and be the next Jeff Bezos, whatever like that. And I was like, that's perfectly fine. I was like, the information I give you is just so you have the skill set and ability to make the choices that you want and
yes,
not be forced into a
right.
situation.
That's what it's about.
So
It's freedom.
yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's one thing if you are passionate or very happy, like working, you know, retail. If that's your thing, then great, cool. There's nothing
Absolutely.
wrong with that at all. But only if you have the skill set where you were able to live at a level where you can do that and not be stressed out about it,
Right. Right.
then it makes sense, right? Other than it's a lot different when you have to do something. I know we've both been there too, where it's like, well, I have to work. because
Yeah,
it's like,
that's a
oh,
very
you know,
different. Yeah.
it's
How
different
can,
it's a different kind of stress. It's a
you
different
know,
kind of
how
stress.
can we help you? Because I know we have
Hmm.
folks that are part of our program today, and we
Hmm.
also we have a lot of people who watch the rebroadcast.
Okay.
So what are things we can do to help you? What are connections we can help you make? Who should we send your way, or who should we send your name to say, hey, here's
Hmm.
somebody you need to talk to? Who is that audience for you?
That would be, at this point, that would be educational leaders. So whether it be superintendents, principals, I would love to just be able to come to, a school, do a professional development session, and just tell them about this and how to make that happen. So anyone in that space
Okay.
would be ideal, actually.
All right,
So
the wheels are turning, man. So I got a couple thoughts
okay,
in my
all
head.
right,
So I do some volunteer
excellent.
work with Souderton High School. Those of you who are watching, I love the volunteer work I do with Souderton High School. They are a very progressive thinking high school in terms
Oh,
of
okay.
not just
Hmm.
preparing kids to graduate and go on to college, but in
Hmm.
really preparing kids to think about work. And they have
Oh, okay.
internships and they have so I think that would be an awesome audience for you. I will do an introduction. If I don't, poke me and say, T, you were going to do an introduction.
Sure,
I will make
sure, of
sure we
course,
do that.
definitely.
And then I have my cousin that works in the Philadelphia School District who had an interest in being here today. She couldn't make it, but she's going to
Hmm.
watch the rebroadcast, but she may have some
Okay.
ideas for you as well.
That'll
So
be that'll be great. That'll be excellent. Like I said, it's just about getting the word out there and just opening up possibilities for the kids. That's really what it's about. So
awesome. Well, Gil, thank you. I'm going to, for those of you who are watching on the rebroadcast or are in our audience now, so I don't think I gave my name in the beginning. So I'm Teresa Hummel-Krallinger, but of Meet the Author. Darby will toss my social media links out there. She's been putting Gil's social media's links out there. You can buy Gil's book. It is an ebook.
hmm.
So you are welcome to go out there and read the ebook and pass it on to your friends in the education world.
Yeah,
I
less
would
than ten
love to
dollars.
see. Yes, it's not a ton of money.
Less
Go
than
out
ten
there,
dollars.
get that, pass it on, and hopefully I'll see you all at the next Meet the Author or a future Meet the Author, whether it be virtually or anybody who can hop a train or drive downtown to Center City, Philadelphia. I'd love to see you at the Pyramid Club. Gil, I'm so delighted you could join us, and I hope to see you at the
Thank
Pyramid
you.
Club.
Yes, I haven't been there in a long time. I haven't been there. Last time I was there was before the renovations. So
Yeah.
it's been
Oh my gosh,
it's been
it's
a while.
beautiful. It was always beautiful. It's just a
Right,
different
right,
kind of
right.
beautiful now with the renovations. Really, really nice. So,
Okay. All right.
and as an author who has been here, you are welcome to attend a complimentary admission to any in-person Meet the Author event for the rest of your
Oh,
life,
thank you.
or as long as I can
Wow.
continue doing these. I don't know. I don't know how long I
Oh,
can continue doing these, right? I don't
well,
know.
hopefully for a long time to come. So hopefully for because you do a great job with this. I did attend one a long time ago. Like I think, well, not when you first started, but it was back when I was a
Yeah,
younger. So yeah, it's
yeah.
been a while. But
It's
thank you
it's
so much for
it's
this
good
platform. I
stuff.
appreciate it.
Well, Gil, keep doing what you're doing. If you
Thank you. Thank you.
see any room for me in the partnership, if you have a program where you need somebody to come in and share some stories of
Of
mindset going
course.
from this to this,
Of
I'm
course. Of
happy to
course. Yes.
partner. Those of you who have participated, thank you for joining us today. Darby, thank you for your help in the chat room. And off we go into the
All
sunset.
right.
God
All right.
bless.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care. All right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.